The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. No one remembered a time before them. No one dared to imagine a time after them. They were eternal. They were supreme. They were the masters of all living things. 1,600 species lived under their rule. Some had joined willingly, seeking protection. Most had been conquered, their worlds burned and rebuilt according to design. The Ascendants, as they called themselves, believed they were chosen by the universe itself to bring order to chaos. And for 12,000 years, no one had proven them wrong. Their warships were living things, massive creatures of bone and metal, grown in orbital nurseries and bonded to their crews through ancient rituals. A single battle cruiser could destroy a moon. A fleet of them could darken the stars themselves. The other species of the galaxy had learned long ago that resistance meant death. Obedience meant survival. There was no third option. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Hunger. He was old by standards, his scales faded from deep purple to a tired. He had served the Dominion for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions on 40 worlds. He had never known defeat. Today was supposed to be routine. His fleet patrolled the outer veil, the dead zone at the edge of known space. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. The radiation storms and gravity wells made it impossible. The veil was simply a border, a natural wall marking where the galaxy ended and the void began. Then the alarm started screaming. "Contact detected," his sensor officer reported, her voice tight with confusion. "Single vessel, emerging from the veil." "Turn slowly. That is impossible. Nothing survives the veil." "I know, Commander, but it is there. It is real." The flickered and saw it for the first time. The ship was ugly. That was his first thought. It had no curves, no elegance, no beauty. It was a rectangle of metal, roughly 2 kilometers long, covered in strange angles and flat surfaces. It looked like something a child might build from scrap. But his instruments told a different story. The power readings made no sense. The ship was generating more energy than his entire fleet combined. Its hull was made of materials that did not exist in any database, and it was moving through space with a precision that should have been impossible for something so large. "Hail them," ordered. They tried every frequency, every language, every protocol known to the Dominion. The ship did not respond. "Surround it," said. "If they will not speak, we will make them listen." 40 warships moved into position, forming a sphere around the intruder. Their weapons powered up, the living hulls growling with hunger, had done this 100 times before. Unknown vessels were either threats to be destroyed or resources to be claimed. Either way, the outcome was always the same. "Send a boarding party," he commanded. "I want to know what that thing is and where it came from." A shuttle launched from the Eternal Hunger, carrying 20 of his best soldiers. They were warriors bred for combat, their bodies enhanced with cybernetic implants and genetic modifications. They had never failed a mission. The shuttle approached the ship. It found what appeared to be an airlock and began docking procedures, watched on his screen, waiting. The shuttle's signal vanished. Not destroyed, not jammed, simply gone, as if it had never existed. "What happened?" demanded. "Unknown, Commander. All contact lost. No debris detected. No energy discharge detected. They just stopped." For the first time in 300 years, felt something cold crawl up his spine. He did not have a word for it. His species had bred out fear long ago, but something very much like it was growing in his chest. "Power all weapons," he said quietly. "Prepare to fire on my command." Before he could give the order, his communication officer made a sound he had never heard before. A whimper. "Commander," she whispered, "they are speaking." The transmission came on every frequency at once. It filled every speaker, every screen, every neural implant on every ship in the fleet. It spoke in a language no one recognized, but every translator in the galaxy somehow understood it perfectly. "We are the last of Earth. We have traveled very far. We wish only to pass through." The bridge fell silent, stared at the ugly ship hanging motionless in the void. "Earth," he said. "What is Earth?" His officers checked the archives. They searched databases going back 10,000 years. They found nothing. No planet, no species, no record of any kind. "Commander," his intelligence officer said slowly, "according to our records, there is no such world. There has never been a species called humans. They do not exist." Looked at the ship again. It sat there, silent and patient, radiating power that dwarfed everything around it. "And yet," he said, "there they are." He ordered his fleet to hold position. He sent a message to the Dominion High Command, requesting instructions. And while he waited, he studied the vessel, trying to understand. The ship had no visible weapons, no shields that his sensors could detect. It simply existed, solid and immovable like a mountain floating in space. His fleet had enough firepower to crack a planet in half, but looking at that slab of metal was not sure it would be enough. The response from High Command came within hours. The vessel was to be escorted to station, the most secure facility in the Dominion. There it would be studied, its crew interrogated, its secrets extracted. The Supreme Ascendant himself had taken an interest. Relayed the orders to the unknown ship. For a long moment there was no response. Then, slowly, the vessel began to move, following the course he had provided. As it passed his flagship, noticed something. Along the ship's hull, faded by time and radiation but still visible, were markings. Letters in an unknown script, spelling out words he could not read. Later, after the translators had done their work, he would learn what they said. Exodus Absolute, Earth Registry, Last Hope of Humanity. He would think about those words for the rest of his life. He would wonder what kind of species would name their ship Last Hope. He would wonder what they had survived to earn such a name. And in the quiet moments before sleep, he would wonder if perhaps, for the first time in 12,000 years, the Dominion had finally met something it could not control. The galaxy was about to change, and High Commander, veteran of 100 conquests, was the first to sense it. He just did not know how right he was. Station floated in the heart of the galaxy, hidden behind layers of security that most species did not know existed. It was where the Dominion kept its darkest secrets. It was where threats were studied, dissected, and destroyed. Executor had worked there for 200 years. She was the Dominion's finest interrogator. Her methods were legendary. She had broken the minds of rebel leaders, extracted secrets from captured spies, and shattered the will of entire species. No one had ever resisted her for long. When the ship arrived, she was ready. The vessel was guided into the station's largest docking bay. It barely fit. Up close, it was even more unsettling than the reports had suggested. The hull was with countless tiny impacts, as if it had traveled through storms of debris for centuries. The metal was strange, neither warm nor cold, neither smooth nor rough. It felt wrong to touch, like it existed slightly outside of normal reality. Weighted with 100 soldiers at her back, the airlock opened with a hiss of ancient air. A single figure stepped out. Had studied the preliminary scans. She knew what to expect, but seeing a human in person was different. The creature was small, barely reaching her chest. It had soft pink skin with no scales or armor. Its eyes were tiny, its teeth flat and useless. It had no claws, no tail, no natural weapons of any kind. It was, by every measure, the weakest-looking thing had ever seen. The human wore a simple uniform. Its hair was dark and cut short. It looked at the soldiers, at the weapons pointed at its chest, and its face showed no fear at all. "I am Captain," it said. Its voice was calm. "I speak for the passengers of the Exodus Absolute. We mean you no harm." Stepped forward. "You will come with me. You will answer my questions. If you cooperate, you will be treated well. If you resist—" She let the threat hang in the air. The human nodded, I understand, please lead the way. The interrogation chambers of Station had been designed to break even the strongest minds. The walls shifted and changed, creating disorientation. The temperature fluctuated from freezing to burning. The lights flickered in patterns that caused pain and confusion. None of it seemed to affect the human. Sat in the metal chair, her hands folded in her lap, answering every question asked. She did not struggle. She did not beg. She simply talked, hour after hour, day after day, telling a story that found increasingly difficult to believe. Your species has no record in our archives, said on the third day. You claim to come from a planet called Earth. We have searched every database. No such world exists. Smiled slightly. It was a strange expression, showing teeth in a way that could have been threatening but somehow was not. That is because we made sure you would not find it. Explain. The human leaned back in her chair. 8,000 years ago, your Dominion sent scout ships to our region of space. We detected them before they arrived. We watched them scan our system, our planet, our cities. And we made a choice. What choice? To hide. Frowned, hide an entire species. We moved underground. We built cities beneath the surface. We covered our planet in false readings and fake ruins. When your scouts arrived, they saw a dead world, uninhabitable, not worth conquering. Paused. They left, and they never came back. The implications hit like a physical blow. You are saying, you have been hiding from us for 8,000 years. Yes. Why, if you feared us, why not flee? Why not fight? Looked at her with those small, strange eyes. Because we were not ready. We were young then, divided, weak. If we had revealed ourselves, you would have destroyed us like you destroyed so many others. So we waited. Waited for what? To become strong. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Felt that cold feeling again, the one her species was not supposed to have. Your ship, she said slowly. The power readings, they exceed anything we have ever recorded. How is that possible? Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Do you know what happens when a species spends 8,000 years with nothing to do but think and learn and prepare? When every resource goes toward one goal, when every mind works on one problem. She leaned forward. We did not waste our time hiding. We studied. We experimented. We pushed the boundaries of what is possible until those boundaries broke, and then we kept pushing. What did you create? Everything. We learned to bend space, to fold time, to draw energy from the fabric of reality itself. We built machines that think faster than light. We cured death. Her eyes met. And we built weapons that your people cannot imagine. Hearts were pounding. Then why come here? Why reveal yourselves now? For the first time, something like sadness crossed the human's face. Because our sun is dying. We had perhaps 1,000 years left before it expanded and consumed our world. We built the Exodus Absolute to carry our people to safety. 7 million humans, the last of our kind, searching for a new home. You could have gone anywhere. You could have hidden again. No, shook her head. We are tired of hiding. We are tired of fear. We spent 8,000 years in darkness because we were afraid of what you might do to us. We will not spend another 8,000 the same way. She stood up. The guards raised their weapons but held up a hand. We are not here to conquer you, said. We are not here to destroy you. We simply want to pass through your space and find a quiet corner of the galaxy where we can live in peace. That is all we have ever wanted. Studied the small creature before her. By every physical measure, it should have been pathetic, weak, inferior. But there was something in those eyes that made her deeply uncomfortable, a weight, a knowing. And if we refuse, she asked quietly. Did not blink. Then you will learn why we survived this long. You will learn what 8,000 years of preparation looks like. And you will understand at last why we were worth hiding from. She sat back down, folding her hands once more. But I hope it does not come to that. I truly do. There has been enough death in the universe, enough fear, enough suffering. She looked at with something that might have been compassion. We did not come here as enemies, but we will not be prey, never again. Ended the interrogation session. She returned to her quarters and sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about what she had learned. A species that had hidden from the Dominion for 8, technology that understanding, a ship that could generate more power than entire fleets, and 7 million beings who had escaped a dying world, carrying knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. She began writing her report, but even as she wrote, she knew that the words would never capture what she had seen in that human's eyes. Certainty, patience, and something else, something harder to name. It was the look of a creature that had faced extinction, stared it down, and refused to die. The Dominion had never encountered anything like it. Was beginning to suspect that no one had. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Despite the Dominion's best efforts at secrecy, word of the strange ship escaped. Soldiers talked. Officers whispered. Traders carried rumors from station to station. Within weeks, the entire galaxy knew that something impossible had happened. An unknown species had appeared from nowhere. A ship had emerged from the dead zone that nothing could survive, and the mighty Dominion had no idea what to do about it. On 1,000 worlds, subjugated species listened to the whispers and wondered. Supreme Ascendant received Executor's report in his throne room on the capital world. He read it 3 times, then he threw it across the room and screamed. Was ancient, even by standards. He had ruled for 600 years. He had crushed 12 major rebellions. He had personally ordered the extinction of 3 species that had dared to defy him. He was feared across every corner of known space. And now some pathetic, soft-skinned creatures from a hidden rock were making him look weak. Destroy them, he commanded. Send every ship we have. I want that vessel torn apart. I want every one of those humans dead. His advisors protested. They showed him the power readings. They explained what Executor had reported. They begged him to consider diplomacy. Did not listen, he never did. 300 warships gathered at station. It was the largest fleet assembled in 1,000 years, enough firepower to crack planets and boil oceans. The Dominion's finest commanders led the assault, each one eager to prove their worth. The Exodus Absolute sat motionless in the void, surrounded by enemies. Captain received the attack warning on the bridge. Her officers looked at her with calm faces. They had prepared for this possibility. They had hoped it would not come, but they had prepared. All hands, she said over the ship's communication system. This is the captain that have chosen violence. We will respond as we discussed. Remember, we are not executioners. We are survivors. Our goal is to stop the attack, not to destroy. Minimal force only. The crew acknowledged. 7 million souls held their breath. The fleet opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy streaked across space. Missiles launched by the thousands. The living warships roared with hunger, their bioorganic weapons unleashing destruction that had shattered civilizations. None of it reached the Exodus Absolute. The weapons simply stopped. Missiles froze in place, their engines dead. Energy beams curved away, bending around the ship like water flowing around a stone. The attacking vessels found their systems failing, one by one. Engines went cold, weapons powered down, life support flickered. And then silence. 300 warships drifted helplessly in the void, their crews alive but completely powerless. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. On observation stations throughout the sector, witnesses watched in disbelief. This was not a fight. It was not even a demonstration of power. It was something else entirely. It was a message. The transmission came moments later, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. We did not come here to make war. We did not come here to conquer. We came here because our home is gone and we had nowhere else to go. All we want is safe passage to the edge of your territory, where we will build a new home and trouble no one." Captain's face appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. She looked tired, sad, but her voice was firm. "We have disabled your fleet, but we have not killed anyone. Every soldier lives. Every ship can be repaired. We do not want your blood. We do not want revenge for the we spent in hiding. We want only to be left alone." She paused, and when she continued, her words cut deep. "But hear this and hear it well. If you pursue us again, we will not be so merciful. Humanity spent 8,000 years learning to survive. We have faced extinction. We have faced the death of our sun. We have faced the endless dark between stars, and we are still here." Her eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer, every listener, every being in the galaxy. "We will not be hunted. We will not be caged. We will not be prey. If you force us to fight, we will show you what survivors are capable of, and you will not enjoy the lesson." The transmission ended. For a long moment, the galaxy was silent. Then, on a mining colony in the outer systems, a young worker set down his tools. There were beings, conquered by the Dominion 3,000 years ago. They had served as laborers ever since, their own culture nearly forgotten. The young worker looked at his companions. He said a word he had heard in the human broadcast, a word from an old language that had been forbidden for generations. "Freedom." The word spread. On the forge moons of soldier caste workers who had been bred to serve began asking questions for the first time. On the prison worlds of the Outer Rim, inmates who had given up hope began to plan. In the Senate of Chains, where representatives of vassal species sat in symbolic silence, voices began to rise. The Dominion had controlled the galaxy through fear. Fear of their weapons, fear of their cruelty, fear of their total, absolute power. But now that power had been challenged. Now someone had stood against the masters and survived. Not just survived, but won. And if the humans could do it, whispered the oppressed masses of 1,000 worlds, perhaps they could too. The rebellions began slowly. A refused order here, a stolen weapon there, small acts of defiance that would once have been unthinkable. The Dominion sent troops to crush them, but for every uprising they destroyed, 2 more appeared. Meanwhile, the Exodus Absolute continued its journey. It moved slowly through Dominion space, never attacking, never threatening, simply existing. A monument to the impossible, a living symbol of resistance. Captain watched the news reports from her bridge. She saw the rebellion spreading. She saw the hope growing. And she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "We did not mean to start a revolution," she said quietly to her first officer. He looked at her with steady eyes. "No, but perhaps the galaxy needed one." She thought about Earth, about the billions who had lived and died there about the desperate gamble that had created the Exodus Absolute, about the 8,000 years of hiding, of fear, of waiting for a moment that might never come. They had not come here to be heroes. They had come here to survive. But sometimes, she realized, survival itself was heroic. Sometimes, simply refusing to die was the most powerful statement a species could make. The Dominion was beginning to crack, and humanity, the hidden species, the forgotten ones, had driven in the first wedge. Whatever came next, the galaxy would never be the same. The Dominion was dying. Not quickly, not cleanly, but dying nonetheless. The cracks that had appeared after the failed attack on the Exodus Absolute grew wider with each passing day. What had been whispers became shouts. What had been isolated incidents became coordinated uprisings. Supreme Ascendant sat in his throne room and watched his empire crumble. Reports flooded in from every sector. The collective had seized 3 mining colonies and declared independence. The soldier caste had turned on their masters, using weapons they had built themselves against the ones who had enslaved them. The aquatic had flooded their orbital stations, drowning their overseers. And through it all, the ship continued its slow journey toward the edge of the galaxy, never attacking, never even threatening, simply existing. That was what drove Mad. The humans were not trying to destroy his empire. They did not need to. Their mere presence was enough. Every day that ship remained in the sky was another day the subjugated species remembered that the Dominion could be defeated. There must be a way, growled to his war council. There must be something that can destroy them. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. No one wanted to speak first. Finally, an ancient admiral named stepped forward. There is one option, Supreme Ascendant, the Annihilator. The room went silent. The Annihilator was a weapon from another age. It had been built 3,000 years ago to end the rebellion, when a coalition of species had nearly broken free of Dominion control. It was a planet killer, a machine that could tear worlds apart at the molecular level. After they were destroyed, it had been hidden away, deemed too dangerous to use. It has not been activated in, continued, but it is still functional. If we can lure the human ship close enough, we can eliminate them entirely. His eyes lit up. Do it. I want those creatures erased from existence. The order was given. Deep in a classified sector, the Annihilator began to wake. Executor learned of the plan through her network of informants. She sat alone in her quarters on station, reading the report over and over, feeling something shift inside her. She had served the Dominion her entire life. She had believed in its mission, its purpose, its eternal supremacy. She had done terrible things in its name, telling herself they were necessary for order and stability. But the human had shown her something different. In 7 days of interrogation, Captain had not once shown hatred, not once shown cruelty. She had answered every question honestly. She had shared her people's history without shame or anger, and when she spoke of the future, she spoke of peace. We did not want this, had said on the final day. We wanted to live quietly, to find a small corner of the universe and make it our own. We spent 8,000 years learning that violence solves nothing. It just creates more violence, more pain, more death. Had asked why they had developed such terrible weapons if they did not want to use them. Had looked at her with those strange, soft eyes. Because we learned something else in our long hiding. The universe is not kind to the gentle. If you want peace, you must be strong enough to defend it. We built our weapons not to conquer, but to ensure that no one could ever conquer us again. Now, as read about the Annihilator, she thought about those words. She thought about the rebellion spreading across the galaxy. She thought about the millions of beings who had lived under Dominion control for thousands of years, their spirits crushed, their cultures destroyed. And she thought about what would happen if the humans were destroyed. The rebellions would be crushed. The hope would die. The galaxy would return to its long nightmare of oppression and fear. She made her choice. The message was short. She encrypted it using codes that even the Dominion could not break, codes she had developed herself over 2 centuries of work. She sent it to rebel networks across the galaxy, and she sent it to the Exodus Absolute. The message contained the Annihilator's location, its activation sequence, its weaknesses. She knew they would come for her. She did not try to run. When the assassins arrived at her door, she was waiting. She had poured herself a glass of wine, a rare vintage from her home province. She had not tasted it in 50 years. "Executor," the lead assassin said, "you have been charged with high treason against the Dominion." She took a sip of the wine. It was better than she remembered. "I know. You will be executed." "I know that too." The assassin studied her with cold eyes. "Why? You served the Dominion for 200 years. You were loyal, you were trusted. Why betray everything you believed in?" Set down her glass. "Because I met a human, and she showed me something I had forgotten." "What?" "That empires are not eternal, that power is not purpose, that there are things worth dying for beyond obedience." She stood, facing the assassin without fear. I spent my life breaking others, crushing their hope, destroying their will. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself it was right. She smiled, and there was something almost peaceful in it. I was wrong. The humans understand something we never did. They know that true strength is not the power to destroy. It is the power to endure, to survive, to keep going when everything tells you to give up. She looked at the assassin. They hid for 8,000 years rather than become what we are. They chose survival over conquest, and now, because of that choice, they will outlast us. The assassin raised his blade. Any last words? Thought of Captain. She thought of those soft eyes that held no hatred, only patience. She thought of the rebellion spreading like fire across the stars. "Tell the Supreme Ascendant something from me," she said. "Tell him that the humans have a word for creatures like us, creatures who ruled through fear and cruelty, who believed themselves eternal, who fell in the end to those they had oppressed." "What word?" "Dinosaurs," she laughed softly. "He will not understand, but the humans will. They will know what it means." The blade fell. Executor, servant of the Dominion for 200 years, died with a smile on her face. But her message had already spread. Across the galaxy, rebel leaders received the coordinates. Freedom fighters studied the weaknesses. And on the bridge of the Exodus Absolute, Captain read the transmission with tears in her eyes. "Who was she?" her first officer asked. Was quiet for a long moment. "She was our enemy. She was their finest interrogator, and in the end she was braver than any of us." She looked at the coordinates on her screen. The Annihilator, a weapon that could destroy worlds, pointed at them. "Set a new course," she said quietly. "It seems we have one more thing to do before we can rest." The Exodus Absolute turned. Its engines flared with light that should not exist. And somewhere in the void, the final battle of an ancient empire was about to begin. The Annihilator was enormous. It floated in the darkness of a forgotten system, a machine the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in ancient weapons and arcane mechanisms that had not been activated in 3,000 years. Energy crackled along its hull as it powered up, drawing strength from the dying star at the system's heart. Supreme Ascendant had come to watch personally. His flagship hung at a safe distance, surrounded by what remained of the loyal fleet. Half his empire was in rebellion. Half his commanders had defected or died, but none of that mattered now. Once the humans were destroyed, everything would return to normal. Fear would reign again. Order would be restored. The galaxy would remember why the Dominion could never be challenged. "The weapon is nearly charged," his weapons officer reported. "Estimated time to full power, 6 hours." Smiled. "Good, let them come. Let them see what awaits those who defy us." He did not have to wait long. The Exodus Absolute appeared at the edge of the system, its hull catching the red light of the dying star. It was alone, a single ship against the most powerful weapon ever created. "They are insane," one of his officers whispered. "What do they hope to accomplish?" Laughed. "They hope to die with honor. Let us grant them that wish." But as the human ship moved closer, strange things began to happen. The sensors started giving impossible readings. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the vessel, and the Annihilator's power levels, which had been climbing steadily, began to fluctuate. "What is happening?" demanded. No one could answer. On the Exodus Absolute, Captain stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes closed in concentration. Around her, the ship's systems hummed with power that had taken 8,000 years to develop, technology that bent the laws of physics, knowledge that had been gathered across of desperate research. "Beginning interference pattern," her chief engineer reported, "targeting the weapon's core systems." The Annihilator had been built to destroy planets. It was powerful beyond measure, but it had been designed 3,000 years ago by a species that had never imagined anything like the Exodus Absolute. The human ship did not fire weapons. It did not need to. Instead, it reached out with forces that could not see or understand. It found the connections that held the Annihilator together, and one by one, it began to break them. Watched in horror as his ultimate weapon started to fall apart. Sections broke away, drifting into space. Power conduits exploded. The great machine that had ended the rebellion, that had been the final guarantee of Dominion supremacy, was dying before his eyes. "No," he whispered. "No, this is impossible." The final explosion was beautiful in its way. The Annihilator's core collapsed, releasing energy that would have destroyed any normal ship within 1,000,000 kilometers. But the Exodus Absolute simply absorbed it, drinking in the power like a vast sponge. When it was over, only silence remained. Fleet began to scatter. Some ships fled for the outer systems. Others sent signals of surrender to rebel forces. A few simply shut down their engines and waited to be captured, their crews unwilling to fight any longer. The Supreme Ascendant himself was found in his throne room 3 days later when rebel forces stormed the capital. He had taken his own life rather than face judgment. His body was disposed of without ceremony. No one mourned him. The Dominion, which had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, collapsed in a matter of months. What rose in its place was something new. The Free Systems Accord was built on principles the Dominion had never understood: cooperation, equality, respect. It was imperfect. There were arguments and disagreements and occasional conflicts, but it held together because its members chose to hold it together. And at the heart of its founding was an invitation. The representatives of 17 species gathered on a neutral station to meet the humans face to face for the first time. They were nervous. Some were still afraid. The beings who had destroyed the Annihilator and broken the Dominion were the most powerful force in the galaxy. What would they demand? What would they take? Captain walked into the assembly chamber alone. She wore the same simple uniform she had worn throughout her journey. She carried no weapons. She showed no sign of the vast power at her command. She looked at the gathered representatives and smiled. "Thank you for inviting us," she said. Her voice was warm, tired, human. "I know many of you are afraid of what we might do. I understand. After 12,000 years under the Dominion, fear is a reasonable response to power." She paused, looking around the room. "But we did not come here to rule. We did not come here to save you. We came here because we had no choice. Our home was dying. Our sun was failing. We built the Exodus Absolute to carry our people to safety, and we hoped, perhaps foolishly, that we might find a place where we could live in peace." She shook her head. "What happened along the way was never our intention. We did not plan to spark rebellions. We did not plan to destroy empires. We simply wanted to pass through." A representative spoke up. "But you did destroy the Dominion. You did inspire us to fight. Does that not make you responsible for what we have become?" Considered the question carefully. "Perhaps, but I believe you would have fought eventually with or without us. The desire for freedom cannot be crushed forever. It can be hidden, it can be buried, but it always survives." She smiled again. "Humanity learned that lesson long ago. We hid in darkness for 8,000 years, but we never stopped hopping. We never stopped believing that someday things would be different." She spread her hands. "So here we are, not conquerors, not saviors, just survivors looking for a home. If you will have us, we would like to be your neighbors. We would like to trade with you, learn from you, build something new together, something better than what came before." The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was welcomed into the Free Systems Accord. The Exodus Absolute found its final resting place in the system, a collection of unremarkable worlds on the galaxy's edge. It was not the paradise some had hoped for. The planets were rocky and dry. The sun was dim, but it was theirs. The 7 million humans who had fled their dying world stepped out onto new ground for the first time in generations. They built cities from the bones of their ship. They planted gardens in alien soil. They looked up at unfamiliar stars and began to call them home. Some humans married into other species. Their children spoke languages that had never existed before, blending cultures that had never met. They carried with them the memory of Earth, the lost world, and the long journey that had brought them to this place. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The free systems accord grew and changed. New species joined. Old conflicts faded. The name became a historical footnote, a warning about the dangers of power without wisdom. And in the great archives of the Accord, a new entry was added to galactic history. It was written in 100 languages, translated for every species, taught to every child. It told the story of a small world called Earth, a violent, chaotic place where a strange species had evolved, a species with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons, a species that should have died 1,000 times over. But they did not die. When their world was threatened, they hid. When their sun began to fail, they built a ship. When an empire tried to destroy them, they refused to fall. They survived, they endured, they remained. And in the end, they found something they had been searching for since the beginning of their history. Not power, not glory, not dominion over others. Just a home, a place to belong, a corner of the universe they could call their own. The humans had traveled very far. They had faced extinction more than once. They had seen wonders and horrors beyond imagination. But they had made it. Against all odds, against all reason, against the very laws of nature, they had made it. And somewhere, in the quiet moments between the stars, the universe itself seemed to whisper a single word. Welcome.